and the draft named Unsaved Changes. I found it by accident, the way you find bruises you don't remember earning. Small, purple, plausible. Our laptop had fallen asleep on the kitchen counter, lid cracked just enough to show a sliver of light. I tapped the trackpad and the screen blinked awake into a document I didn't recognize. No title, just the quiet threat of unsaved changes in the corner, like the computer had learned how to gossip. The first line read, "If I see you on Tuesday, we need to stop pretending we're the good people." The font was ours, the voice was hers, the sentences were warmed in the oven of her mouth. Below it, a paragraph edited to death, words struck, replaced, apologized for. Then my wife's name, Myra, followed by a comma that looked like it had forgotten to fall. The cursor blinked after. I want the part of me that doesn't narrate. I closed the laptop like it had tried to bite me. Then I opened it again because I'm not brave when the truth arrives politely. The doc was a draft of an email that had never been sent. Address line blank. Date unknown. The body read like a voice memo transcribed by guilt. A description of a motel near the river that's better than it has any right to be. One small room with a window that believes in rain. A Thursday from months ago that still smelled like new soap. "You said we could pretend we were just tired," she'd written. "I wanted to be the reason you were." The kettle clicked off. I poured water over coffee grounds and watched the bloom like it mattered. My name is Aaron. I design sound for those small theaters that live in the cracks of a city and make money out of borrowed chairs. I have spent a career teaching rooms how to listen. The house was quiet the way a lie is quiet, so careful you want to congratulate it. Myra came out barefoot, hair caught in a hasty knot, sleep hanging from her the way humidity sticks to a wall. She smiled at me, kissed my cheek, stole a sip of my mug and said, "Today is going to be ridiculous." She meant meetings and an installation at a converted bottling plant. She did not mean, "The thing I wrote and left starving on our counter has teeth." "What's Tuesday?" I asked, casual as a weather app. She stilled for the length of a blinking cursor. "I'm on site all day," she said. "Crew's late. Maybe early dinner if I can crawl back into the world." I nodded slow, then I lied in a way I could defend. "I'm at the Lyric till 9. I was. The Lyric was dark. We open next week. I wanted an empty evening the way a detective wants a corridor." After she left, I reread the draft with the self-harm of a person who confuses information with control. It wasn't a confessional, it was practical. It had addresses and instructions. "Text me when you're close. Walk to the back entrance. The lock sticks. Push first." It described a man without nomming him. A hand that hovered over a glass without touching the rim, a laugh that flinched first, a jaw like a decision. It described herself in a way that felt like an alibi disguised as biography. "I'm good at being good, and I'm tired." I saved a copy to my drawer of small humiliations and closed the computer as if that could put the animal back in the cage. Then I went to the converted bottling plant to see how the afternoon arranged itself. The place was all high windows and corrected history. People in black moved crates and pretended not to see each other. I walked the perimeter like a stage manager without a clipboard. Myra stood on a ladder, coaxing a light to behave, her shirt riding up enough to remind me of the beginning of us. The heat we used to call hunger because it was easier to label than to live. She came down, saw me, and did that little tilt of her head that means surprise and calculation. "Hey," she said. "Thought you were at the Lyric." "Stopped in," I said. "They were rehearsing silence." She smiled, but her eyes were cautious. Caution is different from fear. It's respectful. "Want to see the stupid, gorgeous thing?" she asked, and gestured toward a room where sound bled differently. I followed because I always follow her when light is involved. She led me into a space she'd made into something else. A curtain of translucent plastic strips that turned movement into a rumor. A circle of stools you were meant to hover near without understanding why. A secret speaker in a potted plant whispering a loop of river noise that was not the river but wanted to be. "It's called a room learning to be honest," she said. "Don't roll your eyes." I wasn't, I said, and wasn't. The room hummed like a chest waiting for a confession. She stood near the plastic and I stood near her, and the distance was a measurement we both understood. If this were fiction, I would have reached for her and demanded names. In the engineered present, I said, "I'll get out of your way." At 5, I sat in a coffee place 2 blocks away, the kind that sells espresso and curated sincerity. I stared at the door the way you stare at a horizon for a ship you're not sure you want to see return. At 5:43 he arrived, belief in a jacket, a careful beard that had learned patience. He walked like a man who has asked and been answered more often than he deserves. He didn't look around. He texted someone. Then he left without ordering and turned toward the motel near the river, with the plants in its windows that try and fail to be tropical. I moved before I gave myself permission. I followed him to the corner, then stopped because dignity and cowardice sometimes use the same voice. The motel sign hummed in a font chosen by a committee that wanted you to forget everything but the vacancy. I didn't go in. I went home, which is either brave or stupid, depending on your sport. At 7:22, Myra texted, "Running late, eat without me." At 9:06, "Heading home, save me a corner of the world." My phone remained a smooth, helpful liar in my hand. I boiled pasta, I set plates, I poured wine like a stage direction. She arrived with night on her and eyes that wouldn't sit still. She kissed me with care, rinsed her hands for too long, and asked if the water tasted different to me. We ate and pretended to watch a crime show. The actors lied worse than we did. When we went to bed, she reached for me, her palm flat on my chest, the way you steady a horse you love. We moved like a language we were fluent in. It still surprised me. There's a kind of desire that arrives when someone is walking away and chooses not to. She made the small sound I will love until I die, and I pressed my mouth to her shoulder and said her name into skin I refused to negotiate. If you want purity, don't ask married people for it. Ask us for specifics and practice. That night we were precise. We didn't pretend sex healed anything. It did what it does when you do it with attention. It reported back that the house was, for now, occupied by the people who built it. In the morning she slept hard, mouth open, throat soft. I opened the laptop again because apparently I am that man. The draft was still there. A new sentence had joined the others. Sometimes the body tells the truth and the mouth catches up. It wasn't addressed to him. It felt like a note to herself, or to me if I knew how to read. Tuesday arrived anyway, a dog with a leash in its own mouth. I set a reminder I didn't need and went to work knowing I wouldn't stay. At 4:58, I was in the lobby of the motel, which smelled like citrus pretending to be absolution. The clerk offered me a room without asking what I was there for, which is either kindness or policy. "No," I said, waiting for someone. Myra texted at 5:10, "Leaving soon." I wrote nothing back. At 5:23, she walked through the door and paused to adjust to the cheap light. She looked like a person rehearsing bravery. She saw me and stopped being a person and became my wife. We stood 2 yards apart while the clerk pretended to be a potted plant. "Okay," she said, because she always announces the scene change. "Okay," I said. "I was going to send the draft," she said. "I read it," I said. "I left it open," she said. We breathed. People came and went around us wearing the facial expressions of small crimes. "Is he here?" I asked. "He's in 214, she said. "He thinks I'm on my way up. He thinks we're going to be uninteresting and call it restraint. Do you love him? I asked. Because if you don't ask directly, the mind will invent worse answers. I love how I sound when I text him, she said, and the honesty was rude and perfect. I don't love who I am if I finish the sentence. I nodded. Then what do you want to do right now? Use a room to tell the truth, she said, and reach for my hand. We walked past the elevator, past the ice machine humming like a conscience, into 213. The clerk didn't blink. The room was clean in the way of receipts, bed, chair, a small painting of a boat that had never seen water. She locked the door and leaned against it, both of her hands flat on the wood. I am going to say this badly, she said, which is Myra at her bravest. I wanted to see if I was still a person whose skin could make decisions without asking permission from the story. I don't want him. I want proof that I'm not a hallway. I want you like we're not an institution. She pushed off the door and came toward me. We kissed like a choice, not a habit. Her mouth had the urgency of a person who arrived somewhere on purpose. I held her hips and felt the trembling beneath the strength, the way one misbehaves when it thinks you've stopped watching. We moved slow enough to notice. The heat along her ribs, the quiver of her breath when my palm found the small of her back, the half-laugh in her throat when I traced the old scar on her knee with the tip of my finger. It wasn't penitence or porn. It was accurate. When she said my name, it was a location, not a plea. We stopped because the next step would have changed this into something else. We lay sideways on the bed, shoes on, faces 2 inches apart, her hair a dark field between us. I'll text him, she said. You can watch me do it. She typed, I'm with Aaron. I wanted the feeling more than I wanted you. That's not your fault, but it's not your job. Don't wait. 3 dots appeared. Then nothing. She tossed the phone onto the chair like a small decision she was proud of. We laughed because we needed to survive the room. On the way out, we passed 214. A shadow moved behind the curtain, neither patient nor desperate. I touched Myra's wrist. She covered my hand with hers and kept walking. In the lobby, the clerk looked at us with a neutrality that might have been respect. Outside, the river disagreed with itself in flattering ways. We didn't talk until the long block where the city lets you believe in privacy again. At home, we cooked eggs at a time of day where eggs choose to be metaphors. We ate standing at the counter because we didn't deserve chairs. I'm going to ask for things, she said. I'm going to make it a practice. Me too, I said. I'm going to say no sometimes, and I want that to be part of the practice. We wrote rules on the back of a takeout menu like the teenagers we never were with each other. They were not clever. Tell me before the idea gets a room number. Make a room here. Desire is a thing we schedule, not to domesticate it, but to guarantee it shows up. We signed it with our dumb initials and stuck it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a lemon. Weeks learned us. The draft stayed in the laptop, now renamed Practice. Sometimes she added a line addressed to no one. Today I wanted to be looked at like I was a sparrow deciding not to hit glass. Sometimes I added one. Today the kitchen smelled like we still have mornings. We read them aloud to each other when we remembered and apologized when we didn't. Once, months later, I saw him across a gallery, jaw still decisive, hands still measured. He didn't approach. He looked through me like I was a pane of glass he had learned not to touch. I respected the lesson. I walked to the corner where Myra was bent over a label, arguing with the font. I put my hand at the back of her neck and felt the exact heat that had always been there. She leaned into it like a story telling itself correctly. There are days the edge goes dull and we need a motel we don't check into to remember heat is not a commodity but a habit. We take the long way home. We kiss in elevators like the camera belongs to us. We leave the laptop open on purpose. The file always says unsaved changes. It isn't a threat anymore. It's a statement of faith. We are. We will be. We'll keep writing until the cursor learns to rest without blinking.